my name is Sair3. I play on the Orsha server of Tree of Savior, and this is a highly requested build guide video to my character Alcyone. Just to introduce this, I just want to say that this is pre-combat system rework, where all the stats change, where all the skills change, where basically everything changes. So everything in this video is valid up until that point, which is going to be summer. Right now it's April. So just keep that in mind, that this build may not be viable later. I will be updating it once it comes out. So, but again, that's going to be summer. Right now it's still spring, so everything's good. But as is customary with my build guides, I want to go through a quick log update. This is Ashen, my Inquisitor. She has not changed. Nephili, my Sage, also has not changed. She's Pyro Linker Necro Sage. The only thing about her that's, I guess, different, and it's not even really called different, I guess, excuse me, is because she has been retired from TBL. I used to use her in TBL quite often, but I'm honestly not a fan of the way that she plays in TBL, so I personally have retired her in favor of another character down here. Alcyone we'll get to in a minute. This is a Pyromancer, Sophia, who was actually following a Dark Nova build, which Dark Nova is a gentleman from Cly, but he had Pyro Linker, Thaumaturge, and Enchanter. And I've not done a lot with her yet. Right now she's like Pyro 2, Linker 1, Thaum 1, so I'm thinking of going Thaum 3 on her, and then Enchanter, just foregoing Linker 2. But again, I don't know yet, so I guess we'll come to her eventually. This guy, PD2 probably, I don't know what I'm doing with him. He's been on hold for a while. This character I don't think existed during my last build guide. This is Liev, my brand new Warlock, who is specifically made for TBL. She's got her own video on its way, so Lodge 2 hasn't changed at all from my last video, except there's now a hunter that's going to be deleted. But Alcyone is the topic today. Let's get rid of Caesar over here, sorry buddy, and get to her. Apologies, sometimes my load times are not the best. First of all, let's start with stats. My stats are still the same as the last video, which is 70 invested con, the rest 100% dex. This includes any stats you get from story quests. I personally haven't done a lot of them, so my dex could be higher. These are my stats right now with the equipment that I have on. I'll get to that momentarily. But from the major difference from my last video to this video is... Oh, wait, actually, I have buffs on. Let's get rid of those. So, the major difference... Whoop, that is not the right button. Is my magic defense has practically quadrupled from the last video, and you'll see why in just a second. But equipment, this hasn't changed from my last video also. Crit attack and physical attack, this is a very high dex build, which means it's a high crit rate build. It's not perfect crit rate because it's not full dex, but it's decent enough. This may end up being re-rolled during the combat rework because we don't know exactly how crit attack's going to work yet. So same thing for the cat ears, and the glasses. The glasses were re-rolled from the last video, but the reason that I'm keeping these is for the AoE defense ratio. And for those of you that are unaware, AoE defense ratio prevents you from being afflicted with status ailments. So the higher it is, the better. Technically over 10 you can resist the Cryomancer Frost Tree. So mine I think is 13. 12, good enough. Alright, for bangles, I always use glass bracelets, especially for TBL and maps where I know a lot of mages tend to hide. Otherwise, I have gladiator bands, which are good for like the AoE attack ratio. The strength. The magic defense is not great. That's the reason I use glass bracelets, is for the extra magic defense. Necklace is Max Peta. I've heard of another Corsair, I think it's on Orsha, I'm not 100% sure, that actually uses a Agni for their pistol shot, but I personally choose not to do it. I like the magic defense from mine, where mine is enhanced, and the stat assortment that it gives, but it's your discretion what you'd like to do. Same thing for the bangles. I use the Cariel bangles forever, so, you know, it's just totally whatever you have. Alright, sub-weapon, I use a mana. It did have a red gem in it. I recently switched it to green. You could use either or, especially with a combat change coming. We don't know how crit rate's going to work yet, so it's more up to you. If you can't afford a mana, an Alcris is a fine choice. You get it from the hunting grounds. It comes in 2 slots also. I would suggest getting that. For PvP, bring a Didal Tower shield. For the defense, magic defense, if you have a Practonium shield, the Lionhead shield, use that. That's infinitely better. But this, you know, is basically my give me an extra quick magic defense boost shield. So it's like right now I have 1963 with that, but there's a reason that jumped up for like 163 points, and you'll see why in just a second. I use the Vertov plate robe. If you can't afford the Vertov stuff, which I farmed and made all mine myself, Grinnis is a fine alternative. It's much cheaper and it's much easier to make. It's just you don't get the set bonuses, which you technically don't really even need them. They're very minuscule. If you can't, you know, afford that, use whatever you can get. You can find Nyx's Knight armor now from the hunting grounds, but be aware that those are swordsman only. I also have a leather set. The main difference between leather and plate is plate gives more defense and the leather gives way more evasion. So it depends on how you want to play. I switch between these sets depending on who I'm finding in TBL. For gloves, I use Nyx's Knight gloves because there's 2 slots and the AoE attack ratio. I use a restrained gem because I'm swordsman 2. But you could use basically any skill gem you wanted. The only thing with skill gems is you can't double them. Like, 2 restrained gems on this would not stack. It would still count as 1. So you could use a second, a Hexen Dropper gem would be perfect, you know, or an Iron Hook gem, you know, just either or, whatever you have. The restrained gem you get from Seed Mia's and Tenant Garden. For boots, I use Windrunners because of the 3 slots for magic defense. If you can't afford Windrunners, because they are a little expensive, at least on Orsha, they're about 9 mil for the recipe. Grinnis Greaves have 2 slots, and they're plate, and those are just perfectly fine. Much cheaper alternative. Again, use what you can afford. Don't bankrupt yourself for the sake of, you know, following whatever I'm wearing. Alright, for weapons, your starter weapon, once you get to Barbarian 2, you'll have 2-handed swords, which I don't have any on me right now. But once you get to 120, I would suggest switching to a one-handed sword and, a dagger. So, because you can't use pistols until Corsair Circle 3, but the dagger you could use, start off with Ard, and then Karacha, and then Venom. If you can afford Venom. Venom is very expensive on Orsha. I have one, I don't have it on me, but it's a very expensive dagger, but Karacha works perfectly fine. You know, again, don't bankrupt yourself. But the Trinity Sword is nice because of the critical attack, the accuracy, and the strength. It has 2 slots. After that, basically, you can go to either the Harvester, which is 4 slots, which is exceedingly rare, or the Catacombs Blade, which is a little more manageable. Either or work. The Catacombs Blade is good for PvP because of the block pin. A lot of people in PvP are pure con, so the only downside is it's not that strong, but to be fair here, one-handed swords are not strong in general. 4-slotted Harvester is nice for 2 reasons. One, the 4 slots, so you can put whatever mixture of gems you like. And the second reason being is the negative magic attack. And the reason that that's good is there's some kind of a multiplier in TBL, and I don't know if this is an error, but if you equip this sword, you can basically take a lot less damage from Malleus, because some which way Malleus factors into your magic attack to figure out how much damage to do to you. So since this has negative magic attack, I would take a lot less damage from Malleus. That's the reason you bring a Harvester to TBL. The only thing is you can attack with it, you do a lot less damage though. But once you get to 315, this is the child that you want. It's the Pyrene Sword, it's the one-handed Practonium weapon. I don't know what the orange variant is of this, I've never seen it myself. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, I just personally haven't seen it. but I like this sword for several reasons. One, the AoE defense ratio. Second, the con, the evasion, and especially that magic defense. You put on that magic defense and boom, 1800, hello. And it's just an all-around really nice sword. It needs Transcended because its physical attack is low to begin with, but again, one-handed swords are naturally weaker than two-handers, and frankly other weapons, if I'm being perfectly blunt. So, oh, and if you can't afford a PETA, this is a perfectly fine alternative until you can. So, I think that's about it for items. Headgears, you want something with physical attack on it. Critical attack, you know, is your discretion. Whatever bracelets you can have. It's just a general guideline. Use whatever you can. Personally, I prefer plate for PvE because of the defense. So, you know, again, up to you. The Harvester, I would almost argue, is more useful than the Catacombs Blade for the slots. So, going into skills. Starting in the Swordsman tree, many argue that Gung-Ho is useless. Gung-Ho increases your physical damage but reduces your defense. I personally like Gung-Ho, that's the reason that I have 4 points in it. I've seen several builds that put it into Pummel Beat instead, or just put it all into Bash. It's totally up to you. Bash is useful for knocking enemies away. Concentrate is an absolute must. It gives you additional damage for so many hits. Pain Barrier, if you're a swordy and you don't have Pain Barrier, there is something wrong. It prevents you from being knocked down, and there are a lot of enemies that will knock you down. Restrain is your ability to stun. That's the reason you go Swordsman 2. If you go Swordsman 3, you can get to level 10 and have a higher stun chance, which is the reason most Catagoons go, you know, Swordsman 3 because of the higher stun chance. Same thing for most Fencers. Alright. Excuse me, attributes. And a note about attributes, these may not be around or viable come the stat change, so investing into any of these is totally 100% your choice. So, I personally did it because I've had this character for a while, but again, this is your silver, your discretion. Alright, Cloth Mastery. I don't have a Cloth Mastery set, or Cloth set, I'm sorry, so I never used it. Leather Mastery gives you extra, increases your evasion obtained from attributes by 50%. Plate Mastery Defense increases your defense by 10%. Increase maximum buff count, obviously. Gung-Ho Enhance increases your damage by 50, but it decreases your defense by 50 also. The only problem with Gung-Ho is if you're hiding, and hide is a Shinobi skill, Gung-Ho will reveal your location because of the visual effect. So you can't use this really in TBL unless, you know, obviously you're not hiding. Concentrate increases additional damage by 2 per attribute level. Splash, it increases the AoE attack ratio by 3 for Splash, which means you can attack more targets that are around you. Knockdown is basic, it's kind of essential for TBL. Restrain, slow, it makes enemies slow if they're hit with Restrain. So it's very useful for chasing people down. I have been the victim of this in TBL about 40,000 times. So Provoke is another one that's kind of up to you. I personally turned it off because at the time I was aggroing stuff that was far, far, far too high for my level. So, but as far as switching these skills around, you can technically put whatever points you want from Gung-Ho into anything else like Bash or Pummel Beat. Do not get Thrust. It is a waste of a skill point. Alright, Barbarian. Barbarian skills can be edited also. I would strongly recommend keeping Warcry, Frenzy, and Size at 5. But you could leave, most Barbarians leave Helm Chopper at 1 and put the rest into Cleave or Stomp and Kick. So either, you could do whatever you wanted with these 3. This is just the way I personally like it. Cleave gives a critical rate plus 50, which is very good for a dex build. Helm, it also lets enemies take higher damage from Slash, so it's basically part of a combo. Helm Chopper is one of your stun attacks. Warcry increases your attack by decreasing the defense of enemies around you. Frenzy also increases your attack, but only when you attack one continuous enemy. It's kind of the same frenzy that's on a Sissel bracelet, but kind of not. It's activated in a different way. Seism is another attack. It does inflict stun, and it's very strong. Excuse me, attributes. Okay, two-handed swords are kind of a given because barbarians technically start off as two-handed. You can use any barbarian skill with any weapon set, though, including pistols. So, and shields. So that's something too about shields while I'm on it. You cannot use a shield with any Corsair skill, except the hook, I think. But you can't use shield with pistol shot or hexen dropper, any of that. So keep that in mind. Warcry, enhance, it increases the physical attack effect of it. Duration increases the duration of Warcry on the enemy, which is very useful. And then these enhancements just enhance the attack power of those particular skills. And then Wild Nature, if you run around for a select amount of time, you'll build up, it goes up to 5 total, I guess, charges of Wild Nature, which increases your Barbarian damage. Essentially, you could go Sword3 Barb1 if you wanted for Helm Chopper. The other most common build I've seen for this particular set is Highlander 2, and that's for Fenestra, I think is the name. For, I think that's a guaranteed crit, too. I don't have a Hoplite, so I couldn't be sure, but that's the most common one I've seen. Barbarian is a little bit of a different variant. Alright, Corsair. Corsair, Jolly Roger changed in March to where Jolly Roger's pillaging effect is now innate to the Corsair. And the flag, I don't know what I was trying to say, the flag gives you additional pistol damage, assuming that you get the combo of 300 off. Personally, that's very difficult unless you're in a party. So that's just something I personally have not really been able to do, but maybe once. So Jolly Roger is still useful. It doesn't have, like, the more you upgrade it is, the higher pistol damage you can do. Iron Hook, this is mostly for PvP, but you can also use it in PvE to hook an enemy and keep them there while somebody beats up on them. Kill Hauling, something too is Kill Hauling works directly with Iron Hook, but Iron Hook has an attribute right there, Chain, that will chain up to 3 people, but you cannot use Kill Hauling if the chain attribute is on. Also, if you have Kill Hauling on, it makes Iron Hook much more difficult to aim. So I would almost recommend keeping Chain on just for your benefit, unless you're kind of soloing. But the thing is about Kill Hauling is the bleed attribute is based off strength. And this build has no strength, so the bleed attribute is basically useless. Unlock chest, this is your discretion if you wanted to put like points out of Iron Hook and unlock chest, but personally, if you're going to take points out of Iron Hook and Kill Hauling, I'd put them in Jolly Roger, just for the pistol damage. Dust Devil 15. That's basically your main attack, that's a Corsair 1 attack. Double Weapon Assault, this is not a Double Weapon Assault build, this is a pistol build. Double Weapon Assault basically makes it so there is absolutely no delay between your auto attack and your secondary weapon attack. And there are quite a few builds based off of that, and that's the reason they go dagger. Which, there's a recent update that made it so that pistols can be used with Double Weapon Assault. Personally, I don't like this. The last time I used Double Weapon Assault and was a Double Weapon Assault build, I broke my keyboard. So, personally, I avoid this. I shouldn't even have a point in it, or have it on my skill bar for that matter. So, I would take the point out of Double Weapon Assault and put it into Iron Hook. But this is just depending on how you want to build it. Me being pistol, I have no need for this. Alright, Hexen Dropper is a Circle 2 Corsair skill. If you don't have Hexen Dropper as a Corsair, there is a considerable problem here, because this is your main attack skill. Alright, Pistol Shot, you know, that's one of the stronger skills to an extent. It's not as strong as Hexen Dropper, which none of the skills in the Corsair tree are. But it's useful because it's your only ranged skill. So, Excuse me. Alright, Corsair 3 obviously used pistol. Dagger Mastery, sudden attack. This was prior to getting pistol shot, which is like Corsair 2 and 3. Kill hauling, bleeding, because, you know, why not try? But again, where you have no strength with this build, it doesn't make a lot of sense to use it. It may, it may after the update. Alright, Iron Hook, Chain, same thing. You can hook 3 people. Sorry, I'm getting a little choked. You can hook 3 people with this attribute on. You turn this attribute off to use kill hauling. Alright, Dust Devil and Hexen Dropper enhancements, Pistol Shot enhancements. These are all very expensive, which is the reason Pistol Shot's only level 20. You can upgrade this at your leisure. Jolly Roger Unity. I personally have never had this proc to where it gives you the nullifying enemy's attack chance. It can also mess you up in TBL too, because the Jolly Roger gives you the literal Jolly Roger symbol above your head even if you're hidden. Alright, Pistol Shot Ricochet. This extends the range of Pistol Shot, which is deceptively low, but it doesn't make it as long as, say, a Musketeer's range or a Cannoneer's range, which nothing is as long as a Cannoneer's range. Pillaging. Pillaging is innate. It lets it so you can steal enemies' silver or occasionally their items. You can even steal stuff from boss monsters. So, but those are all the attributes that I personally have. I don't think there's any more for Corsair other than that. But this is for the pistol build. This is what I would recommend. You know, obviously take the point on double weapon assault and put it into Iron Hook. So, alright, let me show you some skills. I'll zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. Let's get rid of my chat there. Concentrate, Pain Barrier, Gung-Ho, Restrain, and Frenzy. I didn't show you the Corsair tree. I'm sorry, the Shinobi tree. My apologies. I'm a little off today. Okay, for the Shinobi tree, and the only reason that I went Shinobi at rank 8 is because with this particular build, Murmillo is not exactly an option. And the reason being, Murmillo used a lot of shield skills, and obviously not using a shield kind of hinders that. Lancer uses spears. You need to have a spear class prior to Lancer to utilize anything. This is just not a Lancer friendly build. So there really wasn't another choice unless, excuse me, you could go Barbarian 3 or you could even go Swordsman 3 for more restraint. So it's up to you if you wanted to go here for Pouncing, which is, well, obviously I don't have it where I'm not Barbarian 3, but Pouncing is a very decent skill, or you could go Swordsman 3 for more restraint. So you basically have Shinobi, Barbarian 3, or Swordsman 3. So in the Shinobi tree, something I want to point out is this build is not clone friendly. And the reason being is because clones work with very select skills. And the only skills I have that clones work with is Kunais and Bash. So if you are following this build with the sake of making a clone Shinobi, you are out of luck. So, Kunais are level 5, this is your main attack skill. Bunshin clones you. The HP of your clones is determined by your dex, which means that your clones are going to have high dex. It also increases your damage by 50%. Mokuton, there's tons of videos on my channel dedicated to my Mokuton failure. Basically, Mokuton can mess you up if you're against like a pyro. Because if you happen to hit that fireball, you're going to land on that pyro that's casting it, and there's a good chance you're going to die because of a fireball. So, you use it sparingly. There's also a bug with it to where you'll get stuck in the sky and never come back down until you recast Mokuton. And Mokuton's got a 35-second cooldown, so that's the quickest way to mess yourself up in TBL. Now, when it works, because it'll stun the enemy whenever you land on them. Katon, this is your major skill that hides you. So this is the one you want to use if you want to hide to attack people. Mijin no Jutsu does the exact same thing as Katon with the added benefit of killing yourself. Alright, I don't have all the attributes for Shinobi. I think there's 2 that I'm missing, and I think they're related to Katon. But increased maximum weight limit, obviously that's a given. Kunai damage is a given. This hides you, otherwise it doesn't do anything but push stuff away. It's also good for pushing fireballs across the field. So, Katon, same thing. Mokuton no Jutsu, this is what causes enemies to be stunned when you land on them. And then Shinobi Walk makes you run like a shinobi. So, makes you run a little faster, and it decreases the stamina consumption. Alright, now I can show you skills. Concentrate, Gung-Ho, Pain Barrier, Restrain, Frenzy. Let's go ahead and do Mokuton. That's Katon. You can, well, I'm technically invisible. You can see that this Gung-Ho blinding shininess. Yeah, that's why you can't use that TPO. So, let's find us some squirrels. Here we go. I'm zoomed in just for context here. This is not how the game normally looks. Alright. Pistol oh, shoot, we got blind. Hold on. Alright, pistol shot. Helm chopper, cleave. Cleave. Size him. Dust devil. Hex and dropper. And there's pillaging also. Hex and dropper. Alright, show you hook. See, I hooked all squirrels, so let's do Bunshin no Jutsu. And let's do Kunai. Now, they use stamina as you move. You see my stamina is very steadily decreasing. So, let's attack this guy. Usually before the clones wear off, you can get off 3 kunais, maybe 4. Bash. Bash. Warcry. Let's show you Mokuton. Oh, there you go. So you leave a log behind, and see this little bind animation? They can't move. Alright. Pistol shot. There's a bug in this map where you start sliding, so I apologize. Move. It's kunai with that, without clones. Vixen dropper. Vixen dropper. Whoops. And pistol shot. And let's do one more kunai, because why not? You can also auto attack with them. Does 5 times your damage. So I hope you enjoyed this build. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave me a comment. Or if you're on Orsha, feel free to PM me. Obviously my name is Sair3. So, you know, I thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments or build advice, just feel free to hit me up. I'm usually online. So thank you again.